Right. Good evening. We are sponsored this week by Rabbi Aaron and Evelyn Kislasi, Le'ilui Nishmas, Rabbi Aaron's father. Shmuel ben Yaakov, Zichron Avrach, whose yahrzeit is on the 13th of Sivan. May his neshama have an aliyah.
Amen.
And thank you so much, everyone, for accommodating our special early edition of the Daf Yomi, 7:30. Normally we were at 8:30. We return to our regularly scheduled program at 8:30. We were preempted this evening to a high school information evening at Eitz Chaim. So, all right, let's turn our attention to the next Mishnah. Hashochet, amen, hashochet min hatzdodin. If you shecht an animal from the side of the neck. Okay, so here's our animal. Let's go sideways, okay? Come from the side, right? Normally you're going to come from the top there, but he's going sideways, okay? So that's how he's shechting. So shchita so kshera. The shchita is fine, right? Now we're going to talk about the backbone, right? And we're going to talk about where you're cutting a thing, but we're avoiding, right? This is where he's cutting. He's not going to the backbone. He's cutting this way straight off the side. So he's going to go right to the simonim and cutting in that direction. Okay, so therefore he's not going to get the backbone in the way. That's important for us to know. Okay, hamolek, if somebody does malika on a bird. So remember that we had to hold the bird either with one hand and do malika in the same hand, or it was holding the bird in the one hand and holding and pushing the finger in with the other hand. They have a picture of the malika, and we'll get to it later, right? So somebody's doing malika, which is the way that you slaughter a bird for temple service. Right, the korban olah and the korban chatos, you have to do it that way. So minat, there it has to come from the back. This bird will be our illustrative bird, even though it's chicken. And in the Beis Hamikdash, of course, they used turtle doves and pigeons. Right. So no chickens.
Pigeons, they're not really kosher pigeons, are they?
Pigeons are kosher, right? They are definitely kosher, yes.
I for dinner tomorrow night.
And so we're going to come at this bird, right? This very similar anatomy, right? Very similar anatomy to the chicken, right? And so you're going to come at it from the back of the neck, okay? So that's where you're coming at it from. If you shecht from the side for the malika so psula, the malika is puzzle. You cannot do malika from the side and miss the backbone. You can't go that way, okay? So that is required. I'm going to hopefully put this chicken there and you stand up and we'll keep, but yeah, he's important tonight.
It's like this fall apart on that.
Yeah. Again, we had the distance, the location of the shechita for a bird, right? It's going to be from the top of the kana and vesht where it connects, just like the cow, and goes down to here, which we're going to discuss this zepek over here, which is the gizzard. Yeah, that's what it is. The crop. That's what that is, right? So we'll get to there later on. But that is our location as well as discuss. Hashochet min ha'oref, if you do shechita from behind, right? Meaning from the back of the neck. So shechita so psula. The shechita is no good because then you're going through the back of the neck. Hamolek min ha'oref, if you do malika from the back of the neck, malika so kshera, then the malika is good. Right? So, right, if you go back, basically, if you come from the front side, that's shechita. You come from the back side, that's malika. Okay, that's how it has to be done. Fingernail, right? Also, we had learned that if it's an attached fingernail, no good by shechita, but that is good by malika. Hashochet min hatzavar, if somebody does shechita from the neck, shechita so kshera, the shechita is good. Hamolik min hatzavar, if you do malika from the front, malika so psula, that is a pasul malika. Right? Because the pasuk says in the Torah about malika, mimul arpo. It has to be from the back, from opposite its oref. And we'll see that the oref is the face of the chicken. Right? So therefore it has to be from behind that. Shekol ha'oref kosher l'malika. The entire back of the neck is kosher for malika. You can use this entire zone from here to here. Right, all that is kosher for malika. This little sticky part came off, but it's okay. That's sort of attached. We'll stick it back on afterwards. It's coming apart already. So if I lose pieces, I'm just gonna. Okay, this is the part that we have to worry about.
It's not kosher now.
Right. Well, it's got some bone separation here, but it is kosher. Okay. So so that is then the kolat savar kosher l'shchita, the entire neck area is kosher for shchita. Nimtza kosher b'shchita pasa malika, that shows you that which is kosher for shchita is going to invalidate your malika, and kosher b'malika, that which is kosher for malika, is pasul b'shchita, right? They are opposites. One is to the front, one is from the back. Okay, right, they even have a real picture of a pigeon, and you can see that with the real picture of a pigeon, our chicken is an adequate model for essentially what we need to know, right? So we'll pretend it's a pigeon. That's what a pigeon looks like, right? We'll pretend our chicken is a pigeon for tonight. Says the Gemara, my oref, what does the word oref mean? That you're supposed to do the malika from the opposite of the oref. So ilema oref mamish, if we're really talking about the face of the chicken, right? The head of the chicken, right? So my arya, so shochet, so afilu molek nami. So what does that mean? Even if the shchit, you're not, why are you telling me that if I go from the back, the shchit is puzzle? Malika is made puzzle from the back of the head. Also, you can't do malika in the back of the head because so it says mimul arpo amarachmana, opposite the oref, opposite the face is where or next to where this oref is going to be. Velo arpo, not the back of the skull itself, but opposite the back of the skull, meaning elamai oref, mimul oref. The word oref in our Mishnah is a shortened rabbinic form of explaining the place that's slightly below the back of the skull, right? Literally, the oref is the back of the skull. Mul oref is what the pasuk says. That means a little bit below the back of the skull. The Mishnah just uses the word oref, but it means the same place. It means what the Torah is talking about. Mul arpo. Okay, Kediktani Seifa, like the end of the Mishnah says, Kol ha'oref kosher malika. The entire oref is kosher for malika. Now, what does that mean? The entire oref? What's the entire back of the skull? The entire oref, the entire back of the neck. That is what's considered valid for shchita. Minani mili. Okay, so how do I know that malika is supposed to be done on the back of the neck? Detana rabbanan, because the pasuk says mimul arpo, as we said, right? Mul haroeh es haoref. It is the opposite which sees the back of the skull, right? It's the opposite side of the chicken next to where the oref of the chicken is. V'chein hu omer, that's what it says. V'hu yoshev mimuli. He is sitting mimuli, right? When it says mul, it means next to, close by. That's the word mul.
We're done with the carotid artery yesterday. You were looking for that word. A certain word.
We were talking about the carotid, what do you call it? Cartilage.
Right.
Correct. That was right. But the carotid artery and things we will discuss when we will get. Well, we'll discuss that later, right? So now, ve'omer, and it says, Kipanu elai oref velo panim. Pasuk in Yirmiyahu says that they turn to me their oref. The oref means the back of their head, not their face. So you see that face and oref are opposites. Face is front, oref is back. This is your oref. Mul arpo is below the back of the head. So that's where we know that malika is supposed to be done. The back is this area of the bird. This is a pigeon today. We're pretending. Imagine it's a pigeon. It looks like a chicken, but it's a pigeon. So my ve'omer. So what does it mean? Why do we need two psukim? So the answer is v'chitema oref gufei lo yad'inan hecha. Because if the one pasuk says, right, you're supposed to be next to the oref, but you don't know where the oref is. So therefore, oref gufei lo yad'inan hecha. I don't know where the oref is. Deneda mul didei hecha, to know where what's next to an oref if I don't know where the oref is. Therefore, tashma ki panu elai oref v'lo panim, that they turn the oref to me, not their face. We call the oref lehadei panim, to tell me that the oref is the back, is the opposite of the face, and so therefore I know where the oref is. Now I know where the mul oref is. Amri bei Rabbi Chia, in the Yeshiva Rabbi Chia, they taught as follows: mitzvahs malika machzir simanim la'achori ha'oref. The way that you do malika, right, is, and I'm going to break this chicken, but that's okay for the sake of, right, for the sake of our discussion here. Let's take this guy out.
You're breaking our pigeon.
Pigeon. All right, I'm going to leave it in. It's obviously not coming out so simple. Okay. Well, I know why. Because this. Okay, it's fine. I'm going to take the simanim, which are here, right, and I'm going to twist them around. Right. I twist the neck of the bird. I turn the neck of the bird. Right. So if I'm going to do the malika on the bird, it says, right, I'm supposed to do mitzvahs malika machzir simanim. Right, he's going to take the simanim around la'achorei ha'oref till he gets to the back of the neck, umolik, and then he cuts the simanim that way. Sorry, that's the whole inside of the bird just fell out. Okay, but we'll get the idea. So
That's done by turning the bird's neck?
That's what it seems like, yes.
Huh.
So let's take a look here. Molekas Simanim. Does he have a good picture here? Not so much. I mean, I'm sure he does, but I'm not sure which one's it. Oh, here we go. Right? It actually looks like he's taking the simanim and manipulating it around to the back of the neck. And I'm not sure, by looking at this picture, whether he's made an incision already, and then he's going inside and grabbing the simanim and cutting them that way. Does that look like that? It sort of seems like that. I presume you could also get that way by turning the neck of the bird slightly, and you can get to by twisting the neck of the bird, perhaps you can get this part around to the front, right? The rest of the inside of the bird you don't have to worry about. We're worried about the neck today. Okay? Pay no attention to the insides of the bird that fell out, right? It's okay. This is important for us today, not the rest of it.
This is a wishbone.
That's the wishbone. That's correct. That's correct. Halachic term.
Speaking of gory.
Yes, right, exactly.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the whole inside's out. Okay, fine. Fine. Ika de Amri, there are those who say that Rabbi Chia said, af machzir, right? He doesn't have to, but even if he does, that's also okay, right? But the mitzvah is to go from the back of the neck, and when you go from the back of the neck, you're going to hit the spine first, and then get to the simanim. So when he says you could also, it means you could also do it that way, but generally speaking, right, if you go from the back of the neck, you're going to get to the, let's see, you're going to get to the spine first, and then you're going to get to the what do you call it? And then you're going to get to the kana and vesh afterwards, the trachea and the esophagus afterwards. Okay? So you're right. If it's not in color, it's not quite as gory, but still, it's quite detailed, right? Okay. Ve'ikadamri machzir dafka, and some say no, that he literally has to, right? Some says that he could. He's also yotzei if he twists it. The other one says no, he's supposed to twist it around. Well, mistabra kimandamar af machzir. It makes sense to go according to the opinion that says you can also twist it around. Mimai, because how do you know that? Midikatani, from the fact that it says in our Mishnah, hashochit min ha'oref, if you do shchita from behind, shchita so psul, shchita's puzzle. Hamolik mina orif malika so ksher, but if you do malika from the orif, from the back of the neck, the malika is kosher. Now, visaka daitach machzir dafka, if the way you do malika is you're taking the simanim and you're turning them to the back, so then machzir dafka, so ma'irya afilu ma'irya molik, why is it that molik is kosher? Malika is done that way. Afilu shochet nami, that would be kosher by shchita too. Because what is it? What's the reason why you can't do shchita from behind? Because you'll cut the spine first. But if you were able to do the shchita in such a way that you cut the kana and the vesht first, which we said, for example, going from the side, you'd be fine. So if you could manipulate the kana and vesht so that they are around, oh my gosh, I told you it was going to happen. Okay, if you were to, speaking of which, if I can manipulate the kana vesht so that it goes to the other side of the spine, so then for sure, that would be a kosher shchita because I'm cutting the simanim without cutting the spine. Okay, so el lav shma mina af machzir. So clearly, it's also kosher if you turn it around the other way. Umasnisan bidlo hadar, but the Mishnah is talking about where you didn't. So the Mishnah is saying if you didn't do it, then malika is still kosher if you go through the spine, and the shchita is not kosher if you come from the back and you do the spine. Amar Rabbi Yanai says, Yakablu ha-rovin es tshuva son, right? So the youngsters should, meaning the people in the yeshiva of Rabbi Chia, should accept that answer, diktani, because it says in our Mishnah, nimsar kosher b'shchita pasal b'malika. There's a circumstance where shchita is kosher, which is pasal in malika, kosher b'malika, pasal b'shchita, and it would be kosher in malika and pasal in shchita. Lemute mai, what is the circumstance where I could do the same thing and be kosher in shchita and not kosher in malika, or the reverse? Not kosher in malika, but not kosher in shchita. Lav lumute machzir simanim lachori orif delo. Must be we're talking about that if you take the simanim and you move them around to the back, by shchita that would be kosher. By malika that would be kosher. Sorry, that would be kosher by malika, right? Even though it's kosher by shchita. Right? There's some places, right? Basically, the fact that the Mishnah is going out of its way to specify that there are some times that the shchita and the malika are, one is kosher, one is not, means that there are some times that it is. So how could you have a circumstance where both Malika and Shchita could take place? The answer is, if I go from the back of the neck, but I twist the Kana and Vesh around behind the spinal cord so that I get that first. Amar Rabbi Barchana. Rabbi Barchana says, no. Lumute shein v'tziporin. We're talking about a circumstance where you did the shchita with a nail, with a fingernail, right? So that is where by the fingernail, by Malika would be, of course, kosher. By shchita, that would be not kosher. And that's what's by kosher by Malika, which is not kosher which is pasul by shchita. And the other one is shein, and then the other one is, right, so shein v'tziporin, I'm not sure what we're talking about, by the tooth, right? By the tooth.
Yeah.
Shmuel mishein. I'm not sure why he brings up the tooth there, right? Because
Wait. The Mishnah on
a shein which is attached is not good, but a shein which is undetached is good for shchita, we had learned, right? Remember, if you have a tooth that was sharpened but it wasn't attached, that you could use for shchita, right? Which you could not use for Malika. So that's why we're mentioning it here. Not that you could actually take a bite out of the back of the neck, although he has a picture of that, right? So yeah, that's not what it means, right?
You mean vampire style?
Correct. Elo Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah lemute molich umevi. So the answer is, so Rabbi Yirmiyah says, there's another explanation about what it's coming to, So Amar Rabbi Barchana, Rabbi Barchana says no, because lemute shein v'tzipor. So he says no, it's coming to exclude the shein and tziporin. Shein v'tziporin behedger k'tani, he says, but we have another Mishnah that already told us the rules about a fingernail and tooth, that they could be used for shchita if they're detached, but not if they are attached. So Ella Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah says, thank you. I'll tell you what is the distinction. L'ma'ute molech umevi. What if I go back and forth? I go back and forth. So I do my Malika in the following fashion. They have a little arrow, looks like a rocking, right? He's going from behind, and he's doing a sweeping motion, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's no good by Malika. But that's exactly what you're supposed to do by shchita, right? You go back and forth by shchita, not by Malika. That's what it's telling me is valid by shchita, but not by Malika, this back and forth motion. And similarly, when you push down, that's what's kosher by Malika and not acceptable by shchita. So it's not necessarily telling us this rule about wear on the neck, twisting the pipes in the back of the neck itself. Okay, so well, that's very nice if you actually hold that sweeping your finger back and forth is actually an invalidation when it comes to Malika, right? Elamanda Amar kosher, but according there is an opinion that holds that Malika is still kosher if you do it that way. Michael, remember what are you going to say? So Rabbi Chia, the answer is that the yeshiva Rabbi Chia, Savri lo kamandamar, molech mevi Malika pasul. They held that it was in fact pasul that way. So therefore, since they were holding that way as pasul, that was a valid explanation of the Mishnah, and therefore they couldn't prove from the Mishnah the statement that they had wanted to make, which is that that if you twist the simanim around to the back, it's still not kosher by Malika. Amar Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana says, mitzvahs Malika kotetz v'yored. So the way that you do Malika is that you are going to sever with your fingernail and you push down, right? You're straight down, right? You go from the back through the spine, pushing straight down all the way. That's how you get that. That's how the Malika is done, right?
Down isn't like in.
Correct. It's through the back of the neck.
I mean, like stabbing you with your fingernail.
Right? Stabbing with your fingernail, right? This is our, right? We'll touch this here a little bit, right? Going from behind. I told you this chicken's going to fall apart. But
Chicken without a head?
there's a chicken without insides. So, but yeah, this head is upside down now. That's right. He needs repairs after the shear. But, right? If you're going straight through from the back, right? That's the way that you want to do this. Okay? So, okay, good. All right. Vezuhi mitzvah. That's the mitzvah of the way to do it. Savar Rabbi Abin Lamemar. Rabbi Abin wanted to say that when Rav Kahana made the statement, Zuhi mitzvah, this is the mitzvah, Kotzet v'yored in Molechu mevi lo, that means that's the right way to do it. You can only do it that way. You can't do it by back and forth, right? That's no good. Got to go straight through. Okay, that's what he thought it meant. Amr le Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yirmiyah says to him, Kol shekein demolechu mevi b'malika kasher. He says, no, if going straight through, which is not good by shchita, is good by malika, then for sure going back and forth is acceptable. Umay zuhi mitzvah. So what did he mean by this is the mitzvah? Ema af zuhi mitzvah. He meant to say this is also a good way to do it. Not that's the best, that's the only way to do it. He meant to say that's also good. Okay, so there are a lot of questions of exactly how to do malika, right? So far, right? Best to go from the back, best to go straight. That's the best way. The question was whether you could turn it around, whether you could go side to side. Could be, but not necessarily. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar Shmuel. Rabbi Yirmiyah Amar Shmuel says, Kol hakosher b'shchita, any circumstance that something is kosher by shchita, kenegdo ba'oref, kosher b'malika. The other side, you go to the back of the neck, that's going to be kosher for malika. Okay, so ha pasul b'shchita pasul b'malika. So we're going to derive from that means that if something is pasul for shchita, then it should be pasul for malika. So lemute mai. So what is it that we are trying to exclude by making that statement? Ilema lemute ikur simonim. If we're talking about that Shmuel is coming to tell us that if you moved the tracheal esophagus to the back, that would be no good because, right, by malika, right, because that was what we said that that if you are going, because we say that, ikur simonim. Ikur simonim is when I sever, it's this chicken basically, when I sever the trachea and the esophagus from the base of the skull before the shchita is finished, right? This is supposed to be connected to the base of the neck here, right? But if it got separated before the shchita, correct, like now, if it got separated before that, the shchita is not valid. Sorry, chicken. Okay. Right, the shchita is not valid. Here's a good one, right? Right. It's pretty severed, right? That's our trachea and esophagus. It's pretty severed. So if that's the circumstance, so that's not going to be acceptable. So what we're suggesting is, right, that's ikur simonim, to tell me that if one of the simonim gets separated from the base of the neck of the animal before you do the shchita, so the shchita is pasul. And so Shmuel is coming to tell us that's also the rule by malika. So, v'hatani Rami bar Yecheskel, but if that's true, didn't Rami bar Yecheskel tell us, ein ikur simonim ba'of, there is no such thing as severing of removing those cords from the trachea and the esophagus, from the base of the neck, by a bird, right? Even for shchita. So, like, if that separates, the shchita is still kosher by a bird, interestingly, right? So, Amar Rav Papa says, L'mu'ute rosho. So the answer is, I'll tell you what Shmuel is coming to tell us. L'mu'ute rosho. What he's saying that if somebody does shechting in the head of the animal, right? If he shechts the head of the animal, not the neck, the head, so then the shchita is pasul. So too, if you do malika in the back of the head of the animal, that is pasul. So rosho pshita, so that's obvious. We don't need Shmuel to tell us that because mimul arpo amar Rahman. The Torah tells us that malika has to be done opposite the back of the head, right? In the neck. Velo barosho, not in the head. So my rosho, so what do we mean when we say the rosho? We mean shipui rosho. We mean the slant of the neck, right? As it starts to go downwards. Kigon denakat mishipui rosho. We started to do the malika at the oref, the back of the neck, where it starts to bend down to the neck. Vehigrim, and then he went and he pushed outside of the right place. Ve'azil ad demata letatoi, and he got down to the place, right? He pushed his fingernail until he got to the place underneath where the simonim was, right? And then he completed the malika there in the place that was kosher. So I guess he started too high, right? Kosher malika, oref is pasul. see. Yeah, this is I guess where he says where he's got this top arrow. This is the makom. This is the place where ein oref she kenegdo kosher lemlika. This oref is not, even though it's opposite this section. This is no good. So if he started here and then I guess went down into and finished the malika that way, that would be no good. Yeah, that's no good. Rav Huna Omar Rav Asi, like Rav Huna said in Rav Asi, Rav Huna Rav Asi, Higrim Shlish, if he starts to do the Shchita, right? If he does the Shchita and the wrong place, right? It starts again, Higrim is always where you start in the wrong place. If he starts Shchita in the wrong place, and then afterwards, V'shachat Shnei Shlish, and then he shachts in the right place, 2/3, Psula. So now that Shchita is puzzle. Right, so that shchita is puzzle. So therefore, that's going to be the same thing by malika. If you start in the wrong place and you go downward into the right place, that malika is going to be puzzle as well. And that's what Shmuel's point to make was when he says that which is puzzle by malika is also puzzle by shchita, is starting in the wrong place and going into the right place is puzzle by both malika and by shchita. Amar of Acha Brei de Rava Rav Ashi. So Rav Acha, the son of Rava, says to Rav Ashi, Haditani Rami Bar Yechezkel, that which Rabbi Bar Yechezkel taught, that Ein Igor Simonim Ba'of, that there is no such thing as severing the trachea and the esophagus from the neck of the bird, as in order to invalidate for shchita or from malika. Lo Amran El Man Damar Ein Shchita La'of Min HaTorah. That's only according to the opinion that says that Mi De'oraisa, you don't even have to do shchita on birds in the first place. Right? Because what we're saying is, you really don't have to do shchita. So therefore, if the bird dies by having the trachea and the esophagus severed in another way, and then you go through with the shchita anyway, it's not really a problem, mida oraisa, from a Torah perspective, because you don't even need to do shchita from the Torah for a bird. I have such an opinion. But according to the opinion that says, no, shechting a bird is a deoraisa rule, Torah rule, ikar, so yesh ikar. So then obviously you can't sever those before you kill the bird, because then you're not killing the bird through shchita. Okay, so Amar Lei, so he says, right, we have not had this, right, Rabbi is going to discuss that, this point later on, right, about, in Daf Chav Ches, we're going to discuss it, about whether shchita is in the Torah or it's only a rabbinic establishment, shchita for birds.
You mean shchita versus malika?
Shchita or just killing it.
But yes, malika.
Only on a korban.
Only on a korban. Okay.
Right. So if according to the Torah, according to those opinions, right, you could just take a chicken and break its neck and eat it, right? Take an axe and chop its head off, right? You don't need to do a whole shchita on it.
Wow.
Right? According to that opinion. Amar Lei, Rav Ashi says back to Rav Acha, Adarabba, what are you talking about? Ipcha mistavra. The opposite is the exact opposite makes more sense. According to the one that says shchita is a deoraisa rule, a Torah rule, then I might have said, okay, halacha l'Moshe misinai. Moshe, we don't know why that is, but Moshe Rabbeinu told us that it's different with chickens, and you could separate the trachea and the esophagus before the trachea and the esophagus is severed by the shchita knife, and it would still be kosher. Right? Even the one that's going to say that shchita for birds is learned from shchita on animals, and we know that that is not the case, that ikor is definitely a problem by animals. So, lo lihavi kabehema, maybe it's a li'inyan ikor, lo havi kabehema, as far as ikor is concerned. Halachal mosh misina, it's not like animals. Elaman damarin shchita lof minat Torah, but if you're going to tell me it's only rabbinic, so then elam midivrei sofrim, mehecha gemirla. Where would they even learn such a concept? In other words, a rabbinic enactment must be imitating a Torah rule. If the Torah always, when it comes to animals, says that if the trachea and the esophagus gets severed, then the animal is no longer able to be shechted, why would the rabbis make a rule to say that if the trachea and the esophagus got severed by a bird, it would be acceptable? That would be going exactly the opposite of what they were trying to imitate. So that doesn't make sense. So, mi behema kula milsa kemehema, you're imitating the shchita of an animal. So you'd take, if you were doing it rabbinically, you'd copy everything from an animal, right? that if you're doing your rabbinic rule, you're just copying exactly what the Torah says. There would be no reason to make a distinction between the two. The only reason you'd have a distinction between the two is if Hashem said so. So that's the exact opposite way of looking at it. Amar Ravina says, Amar li Rabin Bar Kisi. Rabin Bar Kisi told me, Hadatani Rami Bar Yecheskel, that which Rami Bar Yecheskel says, that Ein Ikor Simonim Ba'of, that severing the trachea and the esophagus is not a problem by birds, Lo Amran Ela B'Malika. They said that that's only true when it comes to Malika. That was what I heard, that it was only about Malika. That if you sever the trachea and the esophagus before you kill the animal, before you sever it from the base of the neck, before you actually puncture it with your fingernail, that's still going to be valid. But when it comes to shchita, that's still a problem. But didn't Rabbi Yirmiyah say the name of Shmuel? Kol ha-kosher b'shchita kenegdo ba'orev kosher b'malika, that which is kosher by shchita, doing the exact same thing on the other side is kosher by malika. So that would mean ha-pasol, that which would be pasol, on the other side would be pasol. So the answer is Hahu pliga. He says, no, I would separate that out. I would say that which is kosher by shchita is kosher by malika, but not necessarily something that is kosher by malika is pasul by shchita. That's not necessarily the case. So you could have this circumstance where this oker, this severed trachea and esophagus would not invalidate a malika, but would invalidate a shchita. Amar Zeiri. Zeiri says, Nishbara mafrekes Verov basar ima nevela. Okay, so if you have a behema, an animal, and you sever the spinal cord and most of the flesh that's behind the neck with it, so the animal becomes a nevela. Right? As a nevela, it's already dead, and therefore it transmits tuma. Here's what that looks like, right? They drew it slanted so it looks like it's broken, right? So it somehow got broken and went through the meat on the back of the neck, through the spine. This animal is a nevela. Even if the animal is still moving, it's already a nevela, transmits tuma to people who touch it, right? It's no good. And if you shecht it afterward, it's still not going to help you because you can't shecht a dead piece of animal, right? Okay. It's useful pictures. It took me a long time to draw all that. Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda says, Af ana nami tanina. We learned this from a Mishnah. Malak besakin. If you did malika with a knife, so then mitame begodim abeis habliya, then that bird is nevela, and it's going to transmit tuma if you swallow it. Now, v'i amart treifa havya. And if you're going to tell me that it's not nevela, it's a treifa, right? Treifa is a different halacha. Treifa means that the animal is still alive, right? While it is while it has a life-threatening injury, then it's a treifa. But if it's a treifa havya, malika sa zuhi shchita sa, then the malika is going to be like shchita. So at the end of the day, you have severed the simonim appropriately, and tahani lesakin letara mide nevela, which means that the knife, if you had a treifa, and then you do go ahead, like if you went from the back and you took your knife and you severed the spinal cord, then when you cut the simonim in front, that would be a valid shchita. You'd be shechting a treifa, but it wouldn't be a nevela. What difference does it make? Tuma, right? If it's a nevela, that means the animal's dead before you do the shchita, then the animal can transmit tuma, transmits impurity. If the animal is considered a treifa, meaning it is alive, but no longer kosher and unable to be eaten, then you follow through, and now you've got a kosher shchita, which means it is not tameh, it's not kosher, you can't eat it, but it doesn't transmit tuma, right? So this is our knife, right? And it goes through, right? Goes through the back, and he severs the spinal cord, so then he's doing that, and then he's shechting that, right? So if he's doing malika by a knife, so then it shouldn't be tameh. If he does malika with a knife, it should only be treif. Seems to be a clear indicator that the animal is a nevela as soon as you sever the spinal cord, not a treifa. Right? That's what we're trying to say. Okay, now. Amri, the Bnei Yeshiva said that you can't prove that because Hasam mishum delav shchita hiklal. That's completely different because when you're doing malika and you're coming from the back, all the rules of shchita are completely different, right? So that's why if you're doing malika and you come from the back, it's a malika service, in which case the animal's not considered to be a nevela as you're severing the spinal cord, and therefore the malika is acceptable. It's still, that is the malika. It's not a shchita. But in a shchita circumstance, yeah, sure enough, if you did break the neck, it would be considered to be a nevela, and it would be still tummy. Umay taima. So why is it that this shchita doesn't help? So Rav Huna Amar mipnei shehu machlid, because what happens is you've got a hidden knife, right? So what happens is that if apparently, let's see if there's a picture of it. If you push down from the front, we had said that it separates on the front side, but in the back side, it's machlid. He's got little arrows there that indicates that on this side, I guess this side tightens and this side opens as you cut through. So therefore on this side, if you put the knife through, this will close up and then you won't be able to see as you're cutting into the kana and vesht. And that chalada is required, that open, to be able to see that as you're cutting it is critical to the proper shchita process. Okay, so that is what's going on. So halacha l'moshe misinai, when it comes to shchita, that chalada is puzzle, ruins the shchita. So therefore you're going to wind up with a nevela when you're coming through with shchita. But with malika, it can still be a treifa, that's why. Rava, because there's no such rule of chalada by malika. Rava says no, mipnei shehu dores. The reason is because you're pushing down as you're going through in malika. And so therefore, pushing down on shchita is going to make your animal a nevela. That ruins your shchita. It's not a kosher shchita because you're pushing down. Remember, you're doing malika. We said malika is pushing through. So it's like taking an axe and going, chopping the head off, the bird off. That's that's a nevela. That's a nevela. Okay. Manda Amar Mipnei Shehu Machlid, the opinion who says it's because of Machlid, because it's hidden. My time Elomar Mipnei Shehu Dores. Why doesn't he say it is a problem of the Shechita because it's Dores, it's pushing down? Because Kasavar Molechu Mevi B'Malika Kosher. Because he says, well, maybe he's not Dores. Who says he was pushing down? We said that potentially it's possible that he could have go back and forth when it comes to the Malika. So therefore, the only universal problem of Malika is always going to have is it's Machlid, because the skin is going to close back up and you're not going to see it. The other opinion says, no, it's because you're smashing it. Why doesn't he hold that it's machlid, that it's not going to be open? So Amar Lach, he'll say chalada heichadam. He says that's not what chalada means. I disagree. That's one of the rules of chalada. Hey, what is chalada? Kechulda hadra biikare. So he says, where we're talking about, that's like a chalada is like a weasel that hides, that goes into the corners of houses. Demikasya, that gets completely covered up. Hacha hamegalia. Here, the knife isn't completely covered. The knife is visible on either side of the neck of the animal, right? As you're doing the shchita, right? This is the hidden over here. This is the pushing down, right? Here, right, the knife, even as he's going down, you can see the knife sticking out on the sides. That's not chalada. It's not that the cut is closed up, it's that the knife is completely hidden. If you are using a shechita knife that's too small, right, you use a chicken knife for a cow, and the knife is completely inside the animal, then that would be chalada.
Didn't you say that the skin splits away from the knife?
Yes. Oh, but we're going on the back. Right? That's the difference. Apparently, I guess the way the muscles are or whatever, the back pulls together and then the front opens up. Okay, so Amar Rava ikashli hakashli. He says, but if I have a question to ask about Ze'iri, I will tell you the question that I would like to ask. V'chimesa omid umolik. Well, I don't understand, because if you're telling me that once you sever the spine, the animal becomes a nevela, right? So then if that is the case, so then how are you doing malika on a dead animal, right? Essentially, malika is where you are severing the spinal cord first. That makes it a nevela, and then now you have a nevela, so then how is it a malika? It's a dead animal. So Amar Le Abaye says, V'tikshalach olas ha'uf. So then you will have the same question when it comes to the korban ola of a bird, deboy shnei simonim. When it comes to the bird of the ola offering, you've got to sever both the trachea and the esophagus. Normally when it comes to shchita, you only have to sever one. Okay, why? Because we know that we're going to see that the halacha is that killing an animal requires you to sever both the trachea and the esophagus. To kill a bird, you only need to sever one of them, the trachea or the esophagus. You don't need both. However, when it comes to the ola offering, you have to sever both of them. Why? Because the Torah tells us you have to sever the head of the bird as part of the sacrifice. In order to sever the head, you have to sever both the trachea and the esophagus. So he wants to know, what's the point of severing the second one of the simanim? The bird's dead already. If you took a dead chicken and you cut its head off, that's not malika. So if you already have severed the trachea, what's the point of severing the esophagus? You always have a dead chicken. Because once I severed the first one, the second one is already dead. V'chimesa omidu molik. How could you take a dead chicken or dead pigeon and do shchita on it and do malika on it? It's already dead after the first pipe is severed. So Amar Le, so Rava says to Abaye, Hasam there k'dei l'kayim b'mitzvahs havdalah. That is because the Torah specifically says so. You're right. Normally, sever one of them and the bird is dead. What's the point of severing the other? The answer is because the Torah says so. So the Torah says, okay, dead or not dead, sever the other one, right? But here, once you break the neck of the bird, then it's a nevela. What's the point of doing anything else? Okay, so Ihachi, if that's true, so then ornami. If the whole point is that you have to sever the head, so then it should also that you should have to cut the skin of the chicken as well, right? In order to completely sever the head from the rest of the body, but that is not necessary. The requirement of malika for an oath is only to sever both of the simanim. So the answer is koha ma'akev b'shchita ma'akev b'havdalah. He says the rule is that any circumstance that if you were to do the shchita in a kosher way, so then that is the requirement for separation as well. The kol she'eno ma'akev b'shchita eno ma'akev b'havdalah. But anything which is not required, like you don't have to sever the trachea, the esophagus, that is part of shchita. Cutting the skin, we don't have to worry about that. That's not really part of shchita at all. So therefore, when you're severing the head of the bird, it's considered severed once you've severed the pipes, not once you cut the skin. So Gemara says, "V'ha miut simanim l'rabanan delo me'akve b'shchita u'me'akve b'havdalah." He says, but one second. What about according to the leftover, right? When you do shchita, you don't have to cut all the way through all of the simanim. You only have to cut through most of the simanim. That is the rule, right? We said before, you don't have to cut through most. So then that means to sever the bird, why do you have to cut through all of the simanim? You only have to cut through most of them because malika is going to follow the rules of shchita. So you don't have to cut most of the way. And nevertheless, we see that when it comes to severing the head of the bird, you do have to cut all the way through. So rather, ella ema kol sheyeshno b'shchita yeshno b'havdalah. What we're saying is anything that is necessary in shchita is for sure necessary when it comes to severing the head, but there's even more. For kol she'eno b'shchita, there are things that are not in shchita, eno b'havdalah, are not part of the havdalah, right? If there's no such thing. However, right, so what we're saying is that when it comes to the the simonim, right? You have to be able to sever at least most of the simonim, because that's the way that it goes for shchita. You have to do that. And things that have nothing to do with shchita, like the skin, you don't have to, right? But there could be more to the severance of the pipes than shchita, right? But severing the pipes in the first place is a shchita issue, so therefore you got to go all the way when it comes to severing the head. So that's not my question. Mikol makom kasha, I want to go back to the original question. Original question is, I'm killing the animal and I'm severing its spine. It's a dead animal. What's the point of continuing through and doing malika on it once I've already done that? So Amar Rava says, on Chaf Alef Medaf, Amar Rava, Ema Kainhu Osa. So Rava says that what you have to say is, this is how you have to do malika. Chotech shidra umarpekes below rov basar. You've got to sever the spine and the spinal cord without the majority of the flesh. How do you do that? So, luckily we have a picture of the avenue to take, right? What happens is, right, I'm going to go, this is the rov basar from the top to the spinal cord. You've got to take a circuitous route from the side and then down. So you're going to go where there's less flesh, and then you're going to sever the spine and the spinal cord, the spine and the spinal cord, and then you're going to go straight down to the kana and vesht, which are down here. That's how you're supposed to do it. So don't go straight from the back, because of your question. If you go straight from the back, it becomes a nevela. That's no good. You got to come from here and then down. That's what you got to do.
But then, didn't we say before that you have to go straight through?
Apparently, straight means straight to the spinal cord and then down. Yes. Right? Straight means that we don't want to go to the trachea and the esophagus first and then to the spinal cord. We want to get to the spinal cord, but we want to go to the spinal cord through the shortest route, not through the thickest part of the flesh. Kisolik Rabbi Zera, when Rabbi Zera left Eretz Yisrael, left Bavel when he went to Eretz Yisrael, Ashkechel Rav Ami Diyasi v'Kamer Leil Hoshmata. He saw Rav Ami was teaching this halacha, and Amar Le. So Rabbi Zera said to Rav Ami, "V'chi Mesa Omi to Molik." How can you do that? Because once you're breaking the shedra, or isn't how you already have a dead bird? How are you can do malika? So Ishtamim Kishah Chada. He was quiet for like an hour, right? He didn't know what to say. Amar Le. So Rav Ami eventually said to Rabbi Zera, "Ema kachuo." So we must say that what you have to do is chotech shedra marpepikas below rov basar. You've got to get to the spinal cord without getting to the majority of the flesh. Right? You can't do it that way. You've got to, right? Tanya Nami Hachi. We have a brisa that supports this as well. Ketza molikin chatas of. How do you do malika on the bird chatas? Chotech shedra v'marprekes. You sever the spinal cord and the bone below rov basar without the majority of the flesh. Ad shemagia levesht olakane, until you go directly to the trachea and the esophagus. Higil levesh lakana, you get to either one of those. Chotech siman echad, o rubo, you cut one of them, or at least the majority. Virov basarimo, and then you go back and you cut the rest. And that's where he's got the second dotted line here, right? He says, you're going to go here, to the here, come down here, and then go back and cut the rest of this rov basarimo. Okay, and that's what you do. Ubeola, when it comes to the ola, so shnaim, you have to sever both the trachea and the esophagus, as we said. O rov shnaim, or most of two. So money. Okay, so who is it that with the fact that you have to slaughter, when this brisa says that you have to slaughter both of the simonim or most of them, whose opinion is that? E Rabbanan, if it's the Rabbanan, we said Ha'amri Shnaim Davka. They said you can't follow the majority, right? Trachea and esophagus, you got to sever the whole thing. We had learned before, right? E Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, if it's Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, Ha'amar Rov Shnaim, he says you only need most of two, not all of two. So what does that mean? You sever all of it or most of it? No, most of it. It's all you need. So Ema Shnaim L'Rabbanan V'Rov Shnaim L'Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. What we mean to say is that we sever, if you're according to the Rabbanan, all of it, and according to Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon, most of it. Or else, if you want to say, Rabbi Elazar Shimon, really this price is going according to Rabbi Elazar Shimon. My shnaim, when we say sever two, what do you mean by two? Shadom l'shnaim. It has to look like two, meaning the majority of it. Okay, so a place for us to stop.
On our Rabbi Yehuda, right?
Yes,
Spot.
that is the stop.
All right.
Yeah, beautiful.